Welcome to Rock and Roll High School, your choice for in-depth and personal conversations with the most legendary artists in the history of contemporary music. Come with us as we explore the albums and songs that have become the soundtrack of our lives. Here's your host, Pete Ganbarg.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Rock and Roll High School. Our guest this week is one of the greatest rock singers of all time, and a member of both the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Songwriters Hall of Fame. It's Lou Gramm of Foreigner. As Foreigner's lead singer and co-writer, Lou's soaring vocals helped define rock music from the mid-'70s to the late '80s on classics like Cold as Ice, Hot Blooded, Double Vision, Juke Box Hero, and the worldwide #1 smash I Want to Know What Love Is. Originally from Rochester, New York, Lou got his start in local rock bands before teaming up with Mick Jones to form Foreigner in 1976, a partnership that has since sold more than 80 million records worldwide as they approach their 50th anniversary as a band. Beyond Foreigner, Lou launched a successful solo career with hits like Midnight Blue and Just Between You and Me, and has overcome extraordinary personal challenges, including a life-threatening brain tumor and addiction, with both resilience and faith. Lou joined us recently to talk about his remarkable journey from upstate New York to global superstardom in a career that's still going strong. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Rock and Roll High School. Very happy to have our guest today. Live from Bradenton, Florida, Lou Gramm. Hi, Lou.
How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for joining us. You and I both have Atlantic Records in common, as well as the Songwriters Hall of Fame. I'm very thrilled to be able to speak to you. You truly have one of the greatest rock and roll voices of all time. And
thank you.
In prepping for today, I went back and did a deep dive and listened to as much music as I could find of yours, starting way, way back. And it's just a pleasure. I mean, your voice is stellar. So how are things? We're recording this in October of 2025. You turned 75 earlier this year. How's life? How's it going?
Life is good. I'm still enjoying being a part of music. I have my own band that I'm touring with, and I've been performing with the Foreigner group.
Right. And, you know, we talk about the accolades. Obviously, you and Mick Jones were inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2013, but the band Foreigner was finally, belatedly inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2024. You are playing dates, as you mentioned, with the current members of Foreigner under the name Foreigner 4 with special guest Lou Gramm, and there are dates booked at least through April of 2026 from what I can see.
Yes.
And then you're doing solo dates with your band, but I also read that you are planning to hang up your live shoes, as they say, and potentially spend more time at home with your children in Rochester and with your classic car collection.
Yes. I have a new album coming out March 20th of next year. I have the first single coming out late January or early February, and I'm going to be touring about 3 or 4 months to promote that album, and then I'm going to hang up my microphone and my cord.
Are you ready to do it? I know you've talked about doing it before, but is this the time for sure?
I think it is, yeah. I've got a lot more things I'm interested in doing, and I want to be able to still do them while I'm in good health and hopefully good spirit.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've read that you have 5 children ranging from early 40s to, how old's your daughter now, 7?
7.
So you probably want to spend more time with them as well.
I definitely do, yes.
And tell us about your car collection. I know that's a big hobby of yours as well.
I've been into cars since before I was old enough to drive. I've always loved muscle cars. Early off, I had a beautiful 66 Olds 442. And then as I joined Foreigner and was in a little better financial shape, I started putting a collection together. I have 5 beautiful cars now that I really enjoy driving, and I keep them meticulous. The problem is that touring usually starts in the spring and ends late fall, By the time I get back to my house in Rochester, it's time to put the cars away.
Right. I noticed that there are no tour dates after May of 2026, and I assume it's because you want to get into the cars while the weather's nice up in Rochester next
That's
time.
right. That's correct.
There you go. No reason not to think ahead. So let's talk about Rochester. You were born in Rochester. You are one of three boys born to your parents who were both musicians. Talk about how your mom met your dad.
My dad had a big band in high school, swing band. They played for a couple of years without any vocalist. They were received very well, but the criticism was they needed a vocalist to sing some of the big swing songs that had vocalists. So my dad held an audition. He auditioned, I think, 4 girls who could sing, and the one that got the job eventually ended up being my mother.
Oh, so she joined the band and then ended up spending more time with your dad as well.
Yes, that's right. And later on, they got married, and my older brother, Ben, was born. Meanwhile, my dad was still playing in the band, and my mom was telling him, look, if you're going to be a full-time father, you can't be coming home at 2 in the morning. Plus, my dad had a daytime job that he started at 7 in the morning. So at best, he was getting 4.5, 5 hours sleep.
Yikes.
So that was starting to wear on him, too. And my mom gave him the ultimatum that either he quit the band or find someplace else to live.
There was always music around your house then, I assume, with two musician parents.
Absolutely. Yep. I remember waking up on Saturday and Sunday morning. My dad had the radio on, blasting swing music from the 40s and 50s, and that really gave me my roots. I started to enjoy that music a lot. My mom would come out and sing along with the vocalist that was on there, and it was really fun.
It's probably inspiring to you as a youngster who's interested in potentially making music yourself.
Absolutely. Yes, it was.
And both of your brothers are musicians as well, right?
Yes, they are. Yes.
And your brother Ben, as you mentioned, has played drums with you. Your brother Richard also has played with you in the past. Your first instrument was not your voice, it was drums, right?
Yes, it was.
You want to talk about how you picked up drums first time?
I remember wanting to play drums. I remember in 1962 seeing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show and jumping up and down and excitedly telling my parents, that's what I want to do when I grow up. And they looked at each other and started laughing.
So when you were obviously young when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, were you, as a potential drummer, were you looking at Ringo, or were you just looking at the guys? Were you looking? I know John Lennon's a huge influence for you.
Yes.
What was your feeling that night?
Well, I was looking at all of them. I was knocked out by the songs and their presentation, of course, and the way they were dressed. And Ringo played great, but I was listening to the band as a whole, and I was completely mesmerized because their music and their songs sounded like no one else I'd ever heard.
Well, there is a lyric of a newly unveiled song that Foreigner put out last year leading up to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction called Turning Back the Time, where the lyric is, I saw the Beatles on my black and white TV. It changed everything deep down inside of me. So I assume that is autobiographical coming from your pen.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
I saw the Beatles on my black and white TV. It changed everything deep down inside of me. And when I think about the way I felt that day, I'm turning back to time, flying through the years. There's something missing in my life, so I'm turning back the time.
And so right after the Beatles played Ed Sullivan, were you able to find some like-minded people and start a group? I know your parents got you a drum kit and your brother Ben would sneak downstairs and play the drums while you were outside of the house. How did all that happen?
My dad got me a used set from his brother Carl, who used to play drums in the 1940s. And the drum kit was a 28-inch bass drum and tom-toms that used to clip onto the rim. I mean, it was an old-fashioned set, but it was something to pound on, and I enjoyed playing them. And eventually I got a little better set. And it was then that I would practice when I got home from school. And then I'd run outside to play with my friends. And when I came home after supper, I'd go down in the basement to play my drums again, and I'd sit on the stool, and the snare drum was so high that I couldn't hit the head, and the cymbals I couldn't even reach. And I'm going, what is going on here? I adjusted everything back to the way I had it, and the next day I played my drums again after school. And when I ran outside to play, I didn't go outside and play. I ran around to the back of the house, and I was looking in the basement window.
Gonna catch the culprit.
Yes, I did catch the culprit.
And it was your brother Ben.
Yeah.
Who, ironically, decades later, becomes the drummer for the Lou Gramm Band.
Yes, and he also played with Yoko Ono.
Wow.
A number of bands over the years.
Well, that's awesome. So when did you, as a drummer, realize that, one, you wanted to sing, and two, that you had a voice to sing?
I was in a band when I was 16 or 17 years old, maybe 18 years old, and the band was called Black Sheep. We were covering songs on albums that were not hits. They were the oddball song. That was a great song, but never got the airplay. And that was kind of our MO, playing around town. I was behind a big set of drums, and I was trying to emote, from behind a big set of drums, and it wasn't working out real well. They could barely see me, let alone see who was singing. So we decided that we were going to get a singer. And we auditioned about 8 or 10 people. Some of them were pretty good, but when we told them we wanted to do original songs, they backed out. They wanted to do top 40 songs and get paid the same night,
Right.
So what eventually happened was we found a good drummer, a real good drummer, and I moved to the front.
Wow. So there was no Don Henley or Phil Collins double duty for you. You were either going to do one or the other. And since you couldn't find the right singer, you became the singer.
Right. But I mean, when I was playing drums, I was singing about 60% of the lead vocals anyways.
Right. But you didn't want to keep doing that. It was going to be either one or the other.
That's right.
I would imagine when you look at a Don Henley or a Phil Collins, you're like, how do those guys do that every night, right?
Well, I remember how they did it. And, it's hard to put across an emotional song from behind a big set of drums. It's next to impossible.
Totally. So the Black Sheep guys, were those local players? Were those friends of yours? How did the band come together?
They were friends of mine, and a couple of them were from other bands that I ran across. Some were in earlier bands with me. We got together. We had a talk about doing a band that would play album cuts and not hits.
Right.
Among these album cuts, we'd start filtering in original songs.
Where did the original songs come from? And if you were writing them, how did you realize that, one, you wanted to write original songs, and two, that you had the talent to write original songs?
The guitar player, Don Mancuso, and the bass player, Bruce Turgan, and I would get together, aside from the band rehearsals, and begin to write songs. They were pretty good songs. We worked hard on them, and then we'd bring them to the band, and the band would learn them, and we'd start playing them. And at some point, the original songs were getting as much accolades as the other songs we were playing.
Wow.
So we knew we had something.
And that band, you mentioned Don, you mentioned Bruce. Those are guys who continue to perform with you. You guys are all still good friends, right?
Yes, we are.
That's awesome, because that was over 50 years ago, and
Yep.
Everybody's still going strong. You talk about Black Sheep. Black Sheep gets signed to a new British-based label called Chrysalis. In 1974, you release a song called Stick Around, which is co-written by you and Bruce, and I found it on YouTube. It's a really good song. I mean, there are definite echoes of Paul Rodgers vocally to me. I know Paul Rodgers from Free and Bad Company, is definitely an influence of yours vocally, but it's a really, really good song. It's a great vocal, great guitar parts. For a song that's 50 years old that never really got the shine on it, it still sounds pretty good to me.
She looked my way, my mind worked fast. She walked over, I thought she might pass. Took my hand, she looked so down. I said, maybe I should stick around. Now listen, now baby, yeah, maybe I should stick around. Oh.
It was a local hit, but the detriment was Chrysalis didn't have any headquarters in the States at that time. So the song, although released in America, didn't have any backing by Chrysalis because they had no headquarters in the States. So it just kind of floated along till it faded out. They said they were going to have headquarters in the States, and then they told us that they decided they weren't, and they were going to stay in Europe.
Got it.
And at that point, we asked for our release.
And then the band gets signed to Capitol.
Yes, we played a show with, I'm trying to think of who it was, and there was a Capitol representative there, and he heard the band and really liked the band and wanted to hear some more songs. We sent him a demo of some of our original ideas, and we were signed.
Wow. And who was Stuart Love was the production company that the band was signed to? Is that right?
It was Open Love Productions, and it was Stuart Love was the producer.
Right. And he produced the first two Black Sheep records, and you guys left Rochester to record those records in New York City, right?
Well, the first record was in Sausalito, California.
Oh, at the record plant, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the second record was at the Hit Factory in New York.
Yes, that's right.
And I know that there's a lyric on the Foreigner song in Long, Long Way From Home where you say, I left a small town for the apple in decay. So that sounds like New York City in the 1970s to me. Was that how you got influenced to write lyrics like that, going to visit New York?
Yeah, that was the apple in decay was when New York City had a terrible garbage strike, and the garbage was piled up on the side of the buildings almost to the bottom of the second floor. And the whole city stunk to high heaven. From a small town, Rochester, to the apple in decay.
You're right. There you go. So Black Sheep go on tour, and famously, Black Sheep is on tour with Kiss.
Yes.
And you guys play a gig with Kiss. You get an encore opening, which is very unusual. And then something happens on the way home from the gig that night after getting the opening encore for Kiss. You want to tell that story?
Well, yeah, first of all, we played our last song, and the audience was stomping and cheering. And as we were coming off stage, Kiss's tour manager says, "Do you hear that?" We said, "Yeah." He says, "They want you to do one more." And we said, "Yeah." He says, "Go out and do one more." And we said, "Really?" He says, "Really." So we ran out, we picked up our instruments, and we played one more song, and the same thing was happening, stomping and cheering and stuff. And we got off stage this time, and we said, "Thanks for letting us take that encore." We got dressed, and we went out to hear Kiss, and they were awesome. The guys in the band, we had a big Pontiac Bonneville 9-passenger wagon, and we started driving back to Rochester, and it was snowing and sleeting that night. It was Christmas Eve, 1975.
And the gig was where?
Boston Academy of Music.
Got it. So you are driving back from Boston to Rochester, and a separate rig is driving the gear back, right?
Yeah, so we got home about 4 in the morning, and I was in bed for about an hour when I got a phone call from the head of the crew saying that they hit a patch of ice, black ice, slid off the thruway, and the truck tipped on its side. I said, "Are you guys okay?" And they said, "Bumps and bruises, we're okay, but the truck doesn't look so good." And I'm going, "Oh, no."
Because you've got more dates with Kiss coming, right?
We were supposed to be in Florida about 4 days after Christmas to continue the tour. So a big wrecker came and picked the truck up and brought it to a gas station off the New York State Thruway, and they left the guys there too. So the bass player and I, Bruce, we jumped back in the wagon, and we got back to that area as soon as we could. And we picked up the guys, but we were trying to get the back door open so we could assess the damage to the equipment, and the door was jammed. We couldn't get it open. So we got back about 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning on Christmas Day, and everybody was exhausted and a little upset because we didn't know the condition of the equipment. We knew the truck was shot. So we had a good Christmas. But the next morning after Christmas, there were 3 or 4 of us, and we went back to where the truck was again. We left about 5 in the morning. And by the time we got there, they had the door jammed open now.
Right.
We saw the Hammond B3 with the legs torn off.
Right.
We saw the guitar amps with the mic stands jammed through the speakers. And the cymbals were all cracked. And the drums had come out of the cases, and they were not round anymore. They were oblong.
Right. In other words, you're not making the Kiss date in Florida with this gear the day after Christmas.
And this truck either.
Right. I heard you say in an interview that you actually called that same KISS tour manager and explained the situation, and they said, oh, no big deal. Just call the record company and they'll pay for new gear and they'll get you on the road. But when you called the record company, unfortunately, that did not happen.
Yeah, I called our contact person at Capitol Records. They happened to be in a meeting, and I told her what happened, and would she please bring that up in the meeting and see if they can give us an advance on our royalties so we could get a used truck, some good but not new equipment, and fulfill our obligation to tour with KISS, because we knew touring with KISS is going to sell a lot of albums, and I told her that too.
Right.
And she agreed with me. So she said she would bring it up and call me back later that day. And she called back and she says, they're not going for it. And they've dropped you from the label.
Oh. So here you are with mangled gear and no record deal.
No record deal, no tour.
And so do you have a band meeting and try to figure out what's going to happen with Black Sheep?
We had band meetings once every 2 weeks, trying to figure out what was going to happen. We all had part-time jobs. We were going to save some money and buy some used gear and one of those Chevy club vans or something.
Right.
And start playing clubs in Rochester again to get ourselves back up to a better level. And everybody in the band was, oh crap, we've been doing club gigs for years. I don't want to do that anymore. You know, we had a little taste of what it's really like.
Right.
And that's what we want to do.
And at around the same time, you had met Mick Jones in Rochester, given him a copy of the Black Sheep albums, and you get a call from Mick, who's starting a new band, and asks you to audition, but you don't want to agree to the audition until you make sure that the guys in your bandmates in Black Sheep are okay with that, right?
Yes. Black Sheep's manager was an A&M Records rep. And Spooky Tooth, that's who Mick was playing with at the time,
right,
on A&M Records. So we got to hear them at a venue in Rochester. It's called the Auditorium Theater.
Right.
And they were very good. And after the show, we got to go backstage and meet them. And I gave Mick the 2 Black Sheep albums. And we talked with the whole band, and mostly Mick for a while. And then we thanked them for a great show, and we left. We went back to our once every other week meetings with Black Sheep, basically hitting bottom, not knowing what to do. And we were just going to about wrap it up. My dad calls me at the meeting and he says, some guy named Mick Jones called, wants you to call him back. I says, okay. So I didn't say anything to the band. After I got home, I called him back and he said, Lou, he says, this is Mick. He says, I listened to the Black Sheep albums. He says, they're very good. He says, but your voice is very, very good. He says, I'm not playing with Leslie West anymore. He says, I was with Spooky Tooth when you heard me. I'm not with them anymore. I've got a manager. His name is Bud Prager. He's in downtown New York City. He's backing my new band, and I've got a few members already, but I've been auditioning a number of singers, and I haven't quite found anybody who would fit the job. He says, would you consider coming into New York and auditioning? And I says, I would love to, Mick. I says, but I've got to put some finality to Black Sheep before I do that. I wouldn't want them to think I ran out on them.
Right.
So he says, I'll call you back in about 2 weeks and let's see what happens. So after I talked to the guys in Black Sheep, I told him that Mick called and that he was putting a new band together and he wanted me to come audition. I told him I wouldn't do that until there was some finality with Black Sheep.
Right.
And they said, Lou, you've got a great opportunity here. Go audition. You can see this band's not going to come back together. We had our short run, and now it's over. Go take care of yourself and do us proud. So when Mick called that, I told him that I would come in and audition.
Well, what's great about that is you left it on good terms with Black Sheep, which is why you and Don and you and Bruce are still friendly today, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So what was the audition like? I read that Mick auditioned over 50 singers for the new band.
That's what he said, yes. I didn't hear that till after I auditioned, though.
So when you're auditioning, it's you with a bunch of guys that you've never met before. How do you figure out if this is working or not?
Well, here's the thing. I didn't play with the guys in the band. They had recorded 3 songs, didn't go to a rehearsal studio, went to a recording studio.
So you're playing to track.
I'm playing the tracks.
Right.
And I'm playing a song that I never heard before. So Mick is playing me the tracks and singing me the melody in my ear in the control room. So we wrote out the lyrics. I went in, I started giving it a try, and he would correct me on a few things that he thought were important. And by my fourth or fifth try, I had it.
Wow.
And apparently it sounded really good because he said, "That's great." He says, "Let's move on to the next song." So I think we did Feels Like the First Time first.
Feels like the first time. Feels like the very first time. It feels like the first time. It feels like the very first time.
And then the second song was At War with the World.
Wow. And Feels Like the First Time, the lyrics were written by Mick. So it's not like you were writing, you were just learning the song and singing.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Got it.
He didn't know if I could write or not, except he saw my name all over the Black Sheep albums as a writer. So
Right.
He figured I could. So then I did At War with the World, and then we stopped. He asked me if I wanted to come to dinner at his apartment. I said, sure. So I went to his apartment after we left the studio, and his wife cooked a great dinner, and we ate well. And then we went to his little room, which was a second bedroom where he had his equipment set up. We started working on song ideas immediately. And before I left that night, we had the basis of Long, Long Way From Home.
Wow.
That's how good we clicked.
That's incredible. With the Apple in Decay lyric, I assume.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And he didn't ask me what that was about. He knew what it was about.
Right. He lived there.
Yes.
When did Lou Grammatico become Lou Gramm?
Well, we were rehearsing, and our manager had a penthouse suite on the 17th floor of a building on Broadway and 8th Avenue. And he had offices all the way around the outside of that floor, and the inside was an open space. And he let Mick and whoever he was auditioning or anything else use that space to work. So when Mick and I started getting song ideas done, the next day we would go in and work on them with the band. And then we would record them on an 8-track tape machine. And we would mix them and send them out to the record companies as an audition tape. And we got quite a bit of response. We must have had about 6 or 7 labels come in and listen to us live.
In that space, in Bud Prager's management space.
Yes, that's right.
Got it.
Problem is, we didn't hear back from any of them.
So they all came, they all listened, and you never heard anything.
Yeah, so we assumed they passed, which they did, I guess. So the last one to come was Atlantic Records. And we played for them, and they left. And then John Kolodner, who was head of A&R, doubled back and sat down with us and says, your songs are good, guys. He says, except they're all 6 minutes and longer. He says, if you're honest, he says, have you ever heard a 6 or 7 minute song as a single on the radio other than Inagata Devita? And we agreed that no, we were used to 3 minute, 15-second singles like the Beatles brought in when they came out.
Right.
Your songs are very good, he says, except there's 2 guitar solos and the ending is 3 minutes long itself. He says, let's cut away some of the fat and then bring Atlantic Records back and play them the edited version of the songs.
Wow.
And see what their response is.
So before the band is even signed to Atlantic, Kolodner is acting as an A&R guy would, listening to the songs, giving you edit points and ideas how to make them more palatable to radio with radio-friendly lengths of the songs. And this is before the band is even signed to Atlantic. He's just helping you out.
He's helping us out with the intention of Atlantic coming back and signing us.
Right. And the band I had read was called Trigger at that point. Is that right?
It was Trigger, and nobody was saying anything. And then one day I said to Mick, I says, Mick, I says, you know what Roy Rogers' horse is named, don't you? And he says, no. I says, Trigger. Me! I said, me! And everybody started laughing, and that was the end of Trigger.
And the fact that there were 3 Americans and 3 Brits,
yes,
that's where Mick came up with the name Foreigner, because whether you're in America or whether you're in Europe, somebody's going to be a foreigner, right?
That's correct, yes. And that really worked, and we all loved the name.
And at what point did you change your name to Lou Gramm?
Bud Prager called me into his office and he says, Lou, he says, I like you a lot. I think you're a very good singer. You're really good for the band. He says, but there's a lot of prejudices in this world. He says, and a lot of them are right in America.
Wow.
He says, I think when you start doing interviews and people announce your name, they're going to butcher it. It's going to be Grammatico or Germatico or something like that.
Huh.
So you're going to start stifling inside and you're going to have an attitude towards them before you even start doing the interview.
Wow.
He said, I'm suggesting that you change your name just for the band. You don't have to do it legally. Just change your name to Gramm, Gramm. All your other bank accounts and everything else can stay grammatical, but for your name as a professional in the band, Lou Gramm. And I thought for a second, I says, I like it a lot. Let's do it.
Wow, that's great.
I explained it to my parents who, were a little bit stunned that I did that. But I told them before the album came out that I did it. I says, everything in my business, my will, everything's still going to be grammatical. I says, when I call home to spend time here, it's grammatical. Only when I'm on the road with Foreigner or recording an album am I Lou Gramm.
Right.
They said, we understand. Go do it.
And it's worked for you. It was a good suggestion from Bud Prager.
Yes, it was.
You mentioned that you have an album in the works of unfinished, never heard before Lou Gramm solo songs from the vault. And the album is tentatively titled Released. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
And when will we be able to hear some of those songs?
Well, I think the first single comes out late January, early February. And the album is supposed to be released March 20th.
Awesome. So let's go back to Lou Grammatico is now Lou Gramm, Trigger is now Foreigner, and I assume at some point John Kolodner brings the rest of Atlantic back to hear these newly edited radio-friendly songs.
Yes, and I'm trying to think who was the president at that time. It was
probably Jerry Greenberg, right?
Yes, it was, exactly. That's right. And they all had big smiles on their faces, and they thought that the song sounded great, especially the new edited versions. After we talked a little bit, Jerry pulls out contracts from his briefcase.
So he had them with him.
He had them with him, and I says, you got to talk to Bud about this. I says, we'll be glad to sign these. It's very exciting to be with Atlantic. And that was the beginning.
Wow. And how long was Bud the manager? For a long time, right?
I would say for another 12 years.
Wow. And then the band started working with Phil Carson?
Yes, that's right.
And who still manages Foreigner today, right?
Yes.
Back to making that first album. So the self-titled Foreigner debut album on Atlantic comes out in early March of 1977, and it explodes. The first two songs on the album are Feels Like the First Time and Cold as Ice. How's that for an opening salvo from a brand new band? Geez.
Very, very good. And they both charted very highly. I thought we had momentum built up. We were touring with the Doobie Brothers.
Wow. How was that?
Normally, I wouldn't think that's a good match, but their crowd liked rock and roll. And when we opened up, they went for us big time. It was a lot of fun to tour with them. They were all great guys. They let us have sound checks.
Nice.
Before the show. A lot of groups, the headliner would have the sound check and use up the whole time. And then 10 minutes later, the show began. And the opening act would go on without knowing what they sounded like.
Of course, yeah. But these guys were nicer than that and more respectful. Yeah.
They enjoyed our music. We would hang with them and stuff. It was a really good relationship.
You know what's so funny is that back then you were the new guys and the Doobies were veterans.
Yes, they were.
We talked about the Songwriters Hall of Fame. You and Mick were inducted in 2013. The Doobies weren't inducted until a couple of months ago. So there you go.
I don't understand that. They had so many hits.
Well, they're in it now. There you go. And spent time with them that night. They are the nicest guys.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Anyway, so you're on the road with the Doobies. We talked about the singles of Feels Like the First Time, Cold as Ice, Long, Long Way from Home. The Apple in Decay song was also a hit. And not only are you singing on that album, but you're also brushing off your drummer skills and you're playing percussion on the album as well.
Yes, during Star Rider, Mick's guitar lead was so long that I didn't want to stand there on stage playing tambourine. So they had set up another set right next to Dennis. And as soon as Mick's solo started, I would run back and get on my set of drums, and we played double drums.
That's awesome.
At the end of the solo, there would be a little spot for Dennis to go, then there'd be a spot for me to do the same thing. And then I would jump over the bass drum onto the stage and sing "Speed Increasing, All Control."
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really cool. Really cool.
Have you done that lately?
Not in about 50 years.
So what is the songwriting like? I mean, you mentioned that Feels Like the First Time was a Mick Jones 100%er. Do you guys realize that you have writing chemistry right away?
I think we did when we worked on Long, Long Way From Home. And then we started working on Cold as Ice, and that came out really good. I contributed quite a bit to that. They're mostly his ideas, though, and I'm helping him reach their capacity.
As the band gets more seasoned and you're on the road more, you're making more albums, do you get more and more and more involved in the writing, or does he still come up with the concepts?
He comes up with the concept, but he gives me a lot more leeway to contribute. And I'm okay with that. But I know that from the songs I've written with Black Sheep, I'd like to put my idea out and have him help me with it. Right. It doesn't happen yet for a couple albums.
Right. So the first album, the self-titled album, goes 5 times platinum in America. It's huge in Canada. It's huge in Australia. The band is touring. Then you go back in to follow it up with the album Double Vision.
That's produced by Keith Olsen, by the way.
Right. And Keith Olsen, who was coming off the huge Fleetwood Mac album, he did the album before that with Lindsay and Stevie. Keith Olsen was coming off of that huge album. And Double Vision, I didn't know until getting ready to talk to you today that you guys were at a hockey game, and that's where the phrase Double Vision came from. You want to tell that story?
Well, yeah, I was a New York Rangers fan, crazy New York Rangers fan. Matter of fact, I somehow got season tickets for the Rangers.
Right.
And most people had to wait 2 or 3 years till that came up. But if somebody had season tickets, you could buy them from the person that had them and bypass the wait. So I got them from somebody who wasn't going to use them anymore, and then suddenly I had season tickets. So I'd see the Rangers as often as I could. So we had the song figured out, the music figured out for Double Vision, but no lyrics at all, no title, no nothing. And we were working on it in the studio. I had a small TV in my vocal booth, no sound on, but I was watching the TV while I was singing. And we took a break. And just the time we took a break, a Montreal Canadian, this was in the playoffs, hit John Davidson with his stick and knocked him out.
John Davidson was the goalie for the Rangers.
So the trainers and a lot of people ran out to help Davidson get to his feet, and kind of he just roughly stood there. They held him up and skated him off the ice into the dressing room. During between periods, they announced on the intercom that Davidson was feeling very woozy. They didn't know if he would come back, and he was experiencing double vision. And I said, that's it. And everybody's going, what's wrong with you? I says, I got it. I got the title.
Wow. So not only is that the title of the song, but that becomes the title of the album.
That's correct.
And famously, for us A&R guys, there's a famous credit on the record that John Kolodner's credit doesn't say A&R by John Kolodner. It says with the Double Vision theme, John Kolodner. So that ended up being his credit on every album that he ever A&R'd after that, which I found as an A&R guy very amusing.
That's very strange, isn't it? But it's totally John.
The other, Kolodner, for those who don't know the name, is a legendary A&R guy, one of the greatest who's ever done it. And, he was lucky to work with the band, and the band was lucky to have him in their corner as their A&R guy. And Double Vision, the album, actually did better than the first album. The first album went 5 times platinum. Double Vision goes 7 times platinum. Hot Blooded, Double Vision, Blue Morning, Blue Day. I mean, at this point, is this just a rocket ride for you guys?
Sure is. And we were touring like there was no tomorrow.
And did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the touring?
I loved it. At that point, I loved it. By then, by Double Vision, we were opening for Heart.
Wow.
we were getting so much response when we took the stage as an opening act that it was very difficult for them to follow us.
Wow.
And halfway through the tour, the promoter of the shows had a meeting with Mick and myself and the two Wilson sisters and told them that because of the response of the audience and the way things are, we'd like Foreigner to headline the rest of the tour.
So how did Ann and Nancy feel about that?
Guys in the band congratulated us and said that made all the sense in the world, and the girls didn't say another word to us for the rest of the tour.
Wow. I interviewed Ann for this podcast, and she was great. And it's so funny. We talk about the Songwriters Hall of Fame. They are not in the Songwriters Hall of Fame yet. I am on a mission to get them in.
They should be. I mean, they've written so many great songs.
Magic Man? Oh, my goodness. Yep. So then it just keeps going. Head Games, the next record. No more Keith Olsen. You guys work with Roy Thomas Baker, who with Queen and with the Cars is one of the biggest record producers of the decade. And again, more hits. Dirty White Boy, Head Games.
Head games, it's you and me, baby. Head games, and I can't take it anymore. Head games, I don't wanna play the head games.
You guys go through a run where Foreigner's first 8 singles all go top 20. No one had done that since the Beatles.
Yes, I realized that. Heard that. That's fantastic. That album was not easy to do.
And why was that? Was it because of Roy, or was it because coming off of 2 huge hit albums, the songwriting? What was making it challenging?
We knew Roy had his specific things that he did to production for Queen and the Cars and things like that. It was suggested to us that we get the body of the songs finished, but not any of the particulars finished, so he can work his magic on the production.
Right.
And when we recorded the songs, he was in the control room with his feet up on the desk, and he's just going, yeah, that's good, that's good. And we were looking at each other like, what do you mean, is that it? Nothing was done to the songs in their infancy stage. We were expecting a lot from him, and we got nothing.
Wow. Did that change at all, or the album was finished and he didn't do a lot?
All the things that you hear from Queen and the Cars and stuff like that, we were waiting for some of that. You know, that was magic on their albums, and we were waiting for some of that on our album, and there was none of it. He would be out clubbing every night.
That's
and
crazy.
We were supposed to start at 10 in the morning. I'd be there at 10, and he wouldn't be there till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And he'd fall asleep at the board. There was a shelf on the outside wall of the control room. Every time he arrived, he'd bring in 3 or 4 bottles of Dom Perignon.
Oh, boy.
And those bottles would be finished before we'd start.
Oh, boy.
So getting started was a chore in itself.
Not really what you want from your record producer.
No, not at all. The album, to me, there's some good parts to it, but by and large, it sounded unfinished.
Well, the album was still very, very successful. 5 times platinum. You know, you're going from 6 times platinum, 7 times platinum, 5 times platinum, a top 5 album, still more touring. You mentioned the champagne, the Dom Perignon outside the studio on the shelf. At what point, you know, does the rock star lifestyle start becoming an issue for you?
I think it was the next tour, Head Games.
For the Head Games tour after you made the album with Roy?
Yes, there was drugs going on during the recording, but it began getting out of control, I believe, during the tour to support Head Games.
Got it. After Head Games, you guys go in and you make what is considered to be the magnum opus of Foreigner 4, right? Where it's no longer Keith Olsen, it's no longer Roy Thomas Baker, but hey, we're going for the best. Why not get the best of the best? And you guys bring in Mutt Lange. And Mutt Lange, who is coming off of AC/DC's Back in Black, who after Foreigner 4 would go and produce Def Leppard's Pyromania, he has a reputation as being very, very particular. So if you didn't enjoy the process with Roy Thomas Baker on Head Games, it was probably a different type of not enjoying the process with Mutt Lange.
I actually enjoyed the process with Mutt because he was very positive influence. He was a little too particular about what he wanted, you know. I didn't like that, but in general, we moved right along, and when the songs were finished, they sounded great. The influence that he brought, that he wanted, us to gravitate towards. Mick and I had talked many times after a recording session. He wanted us to sound like AC/DC, like in Juke Box Hero. The standing in the rain, how it's done,
Right.
standing in the rain. It took one guitar, he wanted me to sing, standing in the rain with his head hung low. So I says, Mutt, we're not AC/DC. We're going to start low and held back and build to the climax of the song,
Right. Did he leave you alone?
Yes, he did. He didn't like it, though, until he heard it at the end. And he came around to me personally, and he says, you were right. He says, that's the best way.
Well, that's great.
Yep.
So on that album, the singles, Urgent. Waiting for a Girl Like You, Jukebox Hero that you mentioned. I know that Jukebox Hero for you is one of your favorite Foreigner songs. And I read that it's biographical about you standing outside of a Jimi Hendrix show in Rochester.
Yes. Let me preface this by saying before Foreigner 4 started, there was a shakeup in the band.
Right. You went from a sextet to a quartet.
That's correct.
Is that because you felt on Head Games musically it wasn't heading where you wanted it to be?
That's correct. It seemed like some of the players in the band were playing the same things, the same style on every album. And this was an album that we had to turn people's heads because Head Games was not the album we wanted it to be. We wanted to jerk ourselves back onto the path that we wanted to be on.
Right.
And we knew that with all the people that have been into the band at this point, it wasn't going to be possible because a lot of the same riffs and stuff that they played on Double Vision and Head Games were surfacing on songs that we wrote for Foreigner 4.
Right.
And so the first week or two that we started writing songs, Mick and I got together and we said, we can't do it this way. We've got to, as difficult as it's going to be, we've got to make some changes or this could be our last album.
Wow. So Ian McDonald, keyboard player, leaves the band. Al Greenwood leaves the band as well. And then at what point does Rick had joined the band before that, right?
Yes. So we did Foreigner 4 with Dennis and Rick.
Right. And you and Mick. We
farmed out keyboard players to people like
Thomas Dolby.
Yes, that's correct.
Got it. Yeah, because it's Thomas Dolby who Mutt Lange brought in because they had worked together before. And it's Thomas Dolby at the beginning of Waiting for a Girl Like You. That's all him.
Yeah. That's all him. And also on Dum 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 Dum.
On Jukebox Hero, right.
Yes.
Right.
And he was all through that album playing very eerie, particular parts that made the whole album sound just left of center, you know?
That's before he was an artist in his own right with She Blinded Me with Science and
That's
songs
correct,
like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was starting to be very well known, but he hadn't done his own thing yet.
Amazing. You know, Jukebox Hero has become such an iconic part of, you know, who Foreigner is and also who you are as a writer, that it's actually the title of your memoir from 2013.
That's correct, yes.
And I read that somewhere there is a theatrical musical that's been in development called Jukebox Hero.
Yes, there is. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard about it. And I think this spring I'm going to be able to go see the Broadway debut.
That's
Or
great.
the off-Broadway debut.
Right, right. Well, such great songs. I mean, they definitely are worthy of seeing in a musical theater context for sure. The deluxe reissue of Foreigner 4 came out in September of 2025. It's a lot of stuff that you've said it's stuff that no one's heard before.
Yes, there were some songs, really good songs that we didn't have time to finish. You know, I went back after a number of years to just listen to the basic tracks of everything we had. We must have had about 16 songs. Some of the ones that were unfinished were unusual and very good songs. They just weren't finished.
Right.
So
what was the process like so many years and decades later going back to finish them?
it was unbelievably fun.
Awesome.
Yep. And Phil Carson asked me to do that. And I re-sang that, like some of them had two verses. I sang the third verse, and I put in some harmonies, you know, because the way we heard them was so rough, you know. We ran out of time, and we didn't
Right.
do any more on the track.
Right.
So we polished the track up, put the last verse in. The new guitar player in Foreigner played some riffs at the end, and the song is as it is now.
And that's similar to what you're going to be doing for your solo tracks, right? So you went back to the vaults and found some unfinished ideas for Lou Gramm solo too, right?
Exactly, yes. And there's some really good ideas, you know. They could have made the album, but we just ran out of time and they weren't finished. But I have no complaints about what went on the album at all.
Oh my God. I mean, that album, Foreigner 4, was #1 for 10 weeks.
Yes.
Unescapable in 1981. And that makes each of your first 4 albums, 5 million copies, 6 million copies, 7 million copies. That's got to change your life. I mean, you talk about the sex, drugs, and rock and roll part of it. At what point do you realize that you have some issues that you need to take care of, in terms of substance abuse?
I mean, I knew it before Foreigner 4. After touring a year and a half on Foreigner 4, everybody was in bad shape. And Mick said he was going to take some time off, like a year. I was okay with that. And he took his wife on a ocean liner around the world. And some of the guys in the band were like, what are we supposed to do, And Mick said, just relax and spend time with your wives and try and live an ordinary life for a year. And that's what we did. But I had ideas for my first album.
For your first solo album?
Yes. And while Mick was on his worldwide cruise, Bruce Turgan and I polished them up and finished songs. I went to Atlantic Records and played them for the A&R people and the president. I told them that Mick would be gone for a year. I was ambitious. I wanted to put out a solo album. And what did they think of the ideas? And they loved them. And they gave me a budget, and I went in the studio. So the album came out. I got the spot opening for Steve Miller.
Agent Provocateur, which was the follow-up to Foreigner 4, that came before Ready or Not, your first solo album.
Okay, you're right.
You have I Want to Know What Love Is, which obviously was one of the great Foreigner records of all time. I think it was Foreigner's only #1 Hot 100 single.
Yes, it is.
And there's a great video of you performing I Want to Know What Love Is in 1988 at the Atlantic Records 40th anniversary concert at Madison Square Garden, where you've got the greatest background singers of all time with Stephen Stills, Roberta Flack, and Phil Collins.
Well, yeah, it's all the singers from the Atlantic Records groups.
That must have been fun to look behind you and see who's singing.
I started to sing the song, and as I'm singing, I'm wondering, did they get a choir? Did they get a gospel choir or something? And when I heard them singing the chorus, I just turned like this. I looked over my shoulder, and I saw who was in the choir, and I had a big smile on my face.
So after Agent Provocateur, which was also, a big hit, maybe not as big as Foreigner 4, but, again, a different record producer. You guys had brought in Trevor Horn, of all people, to work on the record. That doesn't work out. Alex Satkin, who had worked with the Thompson Twins, is brought in to co-produce with Mick. But it feels like for you, the band is potentially going in a direction that's a little softer, a little quieter, a little more synth-driven, and not as guitars, drums, rock and roll as you would have liked.
Yeah, when Mick played me the ideas for some of the songs, the musical ideas for some of the songs he wanted to work on with me, I would say 80% of them were synth-driven.
Right. And he picked up the synths a lot more after Foreigner 4, seeing what Thomas Dolby did. He gets more curious. And you're like, guys, we're a rock band,
Yes.
So that's when you go in and you write Midnight Blue with Bruce, and that becomes a huge solo hit for you.
I remember what my father said. He said, son, life is simple. It's either cherry red or midnight blue. Oh, midnight blue.
Talk about that. Cherry Red, Midnight Blue, great song, big hit for you.
I started writing that song. Bruce wrote the definitive chords. When we started writing that song, it didn't take long to finish. It was a natural. That song was just a natural, and it evoked a really good spirit. We made a minimalist demo, and when Warner was getting ready to start working on the album after Agent Provocateur, which was
Inside Information, I took Bruce with me to one of the band rehearsals, and I wanted to offer up Midnight Blue to Foreigner. Oh, interesting.
We played the demo. Demo sounded good. And then Mick, who was the master of chord inversions and stuff, wanted Bruce to show him what the inversions were to the chord intro and stuff. And so Bruce showed it to him, and I couldn't believe my eyes and ears. Mick couldn't get it.
You're kidding.
He tried, and he'd get one chord and he'd screw up the following chord.
Wow, that's crazy.
And you could see the frustration building in him. And then all of a sudden he started playing different chords. And he says, I think I like these chords better. I looked at Mick, I says, no, those aren't the chords. I says, the chords are the ones we played you,
Wow.
He says, I don't think this song is for us.
So Midnight Blue becomes a Lou Gramm song, and then Say You Will becomes the lead single from Inside Information for Foreigner, which is a song you co-wrote with Mick, right?
Yes.
Say you will, say you won't, make up your mind tonight. Say you do, say you don't, wanna be mine. Say you will, say you won't, make up your mind this time. Say you will, be mine tonight.
So Midnight Blue was the most played song in the U.S. for that year.
Yeah, smash, 1987. It was everywhere. And then you followed that up with the Long Hard Look album, solo Lou Gramm in 1989, with Just Between You and Me, which was, if not as big a hit as Midnight Blue, pretty close. You co-wrote it with our former podcast guest, Holly Knight.
Yes.
Great song, Just Between You and Me.
Now don't you know that one cold word's gonna lead to another? Then we'll have nowhere to go. Even if heaven and earth collide tonight, we'll be all alone in a different light. I don't care what the world can see. It's just between you and me.
And she's a great writer and a great lady. I enjoyed working with her a lot.
And right around the same time, you contributed a song in 1987 to the cult classic film The Lost Boys called Lost in the Shadows. So Lou Gramm was everywhere in the 80s.
When I was asked to write a song for that movie, I was right in the middle of working on my second solo album. And we stopped writing our tracks and we worked on a song and finished it and sent it to Joel Schumacher. He was overseeing everything. So we sent a rough version of Lost in the Shadows to him. He loved it. Then we finished one and it became the title song of the movie.
Amazing. Yeah, and that song is still beloved by everybody who loves that movie. That movie, ironically, is also being made into a Broadway show that's coming to Broadway next year, believe it or not.
Wow, I
So,
didn't know that. That's going to be
yes,
awesome.
yeah, people are talking about it, that it's really good with all new
Wonder
music,
if they're going to
which
play
I'm
that song.
not sure. We should find out, right?
Yes.
So we talk about a band as like a marriage, and obviously, as the band spends more time together, as the band has success, like a marriage, things are going to start to fray musically, maybe personality-wise. You mentioned the substance issues. At what point do you realize that you need to leave the band?
I think I left in 1991, and then I came back for a little while.
Right. You guys came back in 95, you made an album called Mr. Moonlight, which has an incredible song on it called Until the End of Time. Which unfortunately wasn't as successful as it should be, but is that Dwayne Eddy on guitar?
Yes, it is.
It's a great song. Until the End of Time from the Mr. Moonlight album on 95 was not on Atlantic, was on a label called Rhythm Safari, which did not promote the record nearly the way that they should. But, like we said, a band is a marriage. Foreigner as a band still exists, but none of the original members are in it. Mick is battling his own health issues right now. Unfortunately, couldn't attend the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. You had your own health issues back in the 90s where you needed surgery on a brain tumor.
Not a cancerous brain tumor, but a large brain tumor that had tentacles that were wrapped around my optic nerve and pituitary gland and made my adrenals defunct.
I heard that after that surgery, you had to relearn how to sing.
I had to relearn how to talk.
Oof.
My surgeon told me, he says, Lou, he says, do you know the operation took 19 hours?
Oh, my goodness.
Yep. And he said, Lou, he says, I'd like you to take a year and a half off to make sure everything is as good as we hope it is. That way, he says, you'll be near enough. If there's any problems, you come back right away and we'll work on it. So Foreigner's management had to cancel the first leg of our tour so that I could have my operation. Strangely enough, they rescheduled the tour about 3 weeks after I got out of surgery.
With a different singer?
No, with me.
Oh.
And the doctor wanted me to not perform or travel for at least a year and a half, because traveling with the air pressure in an airplane and just exerting myself when I've been through such a traumatic experience, he wanted to make sure everything was in order and running smoothly before I start performing again. But Foreigner's management had booked the shows all over again about a month after I got out of the hospital.
Oof. Did you do it?
Yep.
Wow, that must have been very challenging.
Challenging? I couldn't remember the words to the songs.
Oh, my.
I used to dance around a lot on stage. I planted my mic stand in one place and had the beginnings of the first 3 or 4 words of every verse written out in a semicircle around me.
To kickstart the muscle memory in your brain. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yes, that's exactly right. And we toured the world like that.
Wow. And how does it feel now? I mean, it's actually 25 plus years after the surgery. How does it feel now to be on stage singing? Do you remember the lyrics? Does your voice feel the same?
Yes, very comfortable.
That's awesome. And, for anyone who's listening to this, hurry up, because Lou's going to be with his cars and his kids next summer. So if you want to see him, you got to go. You got to go now, and you got to go into the spring of 26 to see Lou Gramm. I could continue. You've had such an incredible career. And I feel like, we haven't even gotten to mention your band Shadow King and some of the other things. But the music that you've made is it's timeless. The songwriting is peerless. Your vocal performance is just uncanny how good it is.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, we're recording this in October of 2025. what's left? Is there anything else musically for you? Do you just want to kind of enjoy the rest of the time that we have? Like, how do you feel moving forward into the future now?
Well, I'm anxious to promote and at least tour for a few months, supporting my new album, which I think is a very strong album, song-wise and performance-wise.
And that's the album that's called Released, right?
Yes.
So we'll all look for that coming in early 2026.
But I've set the timeline where it's all going to end. I've allowed myself some time to promote the album, and hopefully it'll get some radio airplay. I've been meaning to do this for a couple of years now, and I wanted to put this last album out once I started it,
Right.
I'm ready to tour to support it for a while, but I've got my last date in mind, and I've told my booking agent, and I've told the guys in the band that this is going to be it, and they're okay with that. They're like, yeah, Lou, live the rest of your life,
Yeah, well, it's incredible. We can't wait to hear what Released sounds like. And congratulations again on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, on the Songwriters Hall of Fame induction, and 50 plus years of incredible music. I appreciate your time, Lou Gramm. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Fill my eyes with that double vision. No disguise for that double vision. Ooh, when it gets through to me, it's always new to me. My double vision is the best of me.
A big thank you to Hall of Famer Lou Gramm, a foreigner, for joining us this week. From Juke Box Hero and Waiting for a Girl Like You to I Want to Know What Love Is and Urgent, Lou's voice has helped shape the soundtrack of a generation and remains one of the most iconic in rock. To learn more about Lou's life and music, check out his memoir, Juke Box Hero, My 5 Decades in Rock and Roll, and visit his website at lougrammofficial.com for news and upcoming tour dates. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for another episode of Rock and Roll High School.
Rock and Roll High School is a presentation of Pure Tone Music, produced by Pete Ganbarg with assistance from Steve Leeds, Joe Pomerico, Dana Stenson, Aaron Menuza, Christina Katsamanidis, and Rich Mahan. Please visit our website at rockschoolpodcast.com for past episodes and information on what's coming next. All rights reserved.